Ladies and gentlemen, it's happened. We've seen the official reveal for the seasonal update that's going to save the game. It's gonna save it. You thought Suicide Squad was dead. It's not. They just getting going, fam. They just be getting going. And the way they're doing it is by adding a new playable character that is focused on the cold. And, obviously with games like this, you have to have playable characters that are iconic, that people see and they want to get in there and experience themselves. You got to do something recognizable. You need to win people over, get them excited again. And they tried that with season 1 with the Joker, iconic DC villain, member of the Suicide Squad. Get him in there. So what is another iconic, super recognizable character that's focused on the cold that you could use to get people hyped up? Maybe somebody who was like a former governor of California. That would be easy. So, let's see who it is. Okay. This is the genius decision of what they're doing. So a couple of little tidbits. For one, elephant in the room. That's not a pun. How dare you think I'm making that joke? Elephant in the room. See, I doubled down on it. This is a winter themed season. And some people were like, this is a really weird choice to be doing at this point. Well, here's the deal. The original game was supposed to come out late spring, early summer of last year, I think is what it was. I think it was May was the original release. And so they were supposed to do season 1 basically as the fall event for the Joker and all of that stuff. Then they were supposed to, once winter hit, this past winter, they were supposed to do this. So the game is just generally 6 months to 9 months behind schedule, but it's because they were delayed so long. And now apparently they have a skeleton crew working on the game. I think that's at least what's going on. But apparently they have a skeleton crew working on it, and the rest of the team is working on a director's cut of Hogwarts Legacy, which is interesting to hear that they're doubling down on that, which is pretty cool. What does the director's cut bring? I don't know, but I'm excited to see. Much more excited for that. But they dropped this, and it starts July 11th, which is what, Thursday? So I need to stream on Thursday. We're going to try it. Oh God, why do I do this to myself? So we're going to do that, and the gods of gaming will need to be with me. But let's see what Paul Tassi writes about it. At this point, the fate of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League seems to be decided. We've heard that the plan is to finish off the promised 4 seasons of post-launch content this year, but in all likelihood, that's it, and things will wrap up thereafter due to the game's extremely poor launch and extremely poor ongoing performance. It has not been a good situation from start to finish. Now, however, we are getting some news about Suicide Squad Season 2, ending the 2 chapters of the Joker season that only drew a quarter of its original launch numbers, with its second episode barely doing even a sixth of that, and the reveal of a gender-flipped Mrs. Freeze has many players wondering why she was chosen to spearhead a season as an extremely random character. You can see her above, and her design has been met with lots of pushback. I too dislike it, not for woke reasons, but I just don't think it's very good compared to something more interestingly stylized they could have come up with. But the larger question is, why pick her at all? If they wanted to do a woman who freezes things, who is a villain, the DC universe has Killer Frost right there. I guess the idea here is leaning more into the multiverse concept, where Brainiac is pulling from other worlds. This is how we got a not dead younger Joker, and it's how we're getting a Freeze, where I guess she lives out his original story, but as a woman. Maybe it's different, but we don't know that yet. I do not expect season 3 lead Zoe Lawton, Deadshot's daughter, to move the needle either. I think everyone still even a little bit on board is waiting for season 4's Deathstroke, the most anticipated character, but as ever, I've had issues with Suicide Squad where because of the melee grenade gun system, almost everyone plays the same outside of traversal, so new characters mean less here than they do in other classic hero-based games. That said, there are reports that Mrs. Freeze has an ice surfing type of mechanic to get around the city, which if true, and if executed right, actually sounds pretty awesome. However, her arrival also exemplifies the extremely weird concept of this game as a gun-based looter and shooter in the first place. While there are ice weapons, you could theoretically build Freeze with fire or lightning or poison builds, which is certainly strange. Yeah, and again, just at its core, it feels so contrived as a looter shooter where apparently, at one stage in development, the game was very heavily focused on melee. That was a huge part of it, where like originally, Harley had her hammer and King Shark had, his hands and he would tear things apart. And then they pivoted off to do a looter shooter thing, which just doesn't really make sense. Like you're playing as a god shark and you're going to go around shooting things with chain guns. Like what? How does that make any sense? But that's just what the game is. And it makes all the heroes kind of blend together once you get used to them. Outside of traversal, it doesn't really do anything that differently. You just load up each character with guns and they do their thing. The movement is cool. The movement of the Joker, for example, is really well done. I really like how smooth the animations are and all of that, but nobody's been doubting the quality of that. You can't have really good animation quality with traversal and have that carry an entire game that's not about traversal. It's about shooting stuff. And so it just doesn't follow, therefore, that all of the other stuff will therefore be worth doing. And here's the deal with all this. The whole thing, let's see, there was a leaked picture, this right here. So this is what she looks like in the game. The pictures that you've seen like here, these are of course stylized and look a little bit better, but this is what she'll actually look like in the game. And frankly, it's just a ridiculously uninteresting design. Like when you're trying to excite players, even if you thought the game was going to be really successful, because it seems like most developers generally think their games are going to be successful, otherwise they wouldn't make them. Why would you choose this over just Mr. Freeze? Like why did you choose this? Somebody had to talk at a conference room table about the potential playable characters and say, we should do this instead of like a super buff Arnold Schwarzenegger looking Mr. Freeze. And you can say, well, it's because they're leaning into the multiverse thing. They wanted to make it more wacky and crazy. Okay. You could have also just gone to an alternative dimension where Mr. Freeze is like, I don't know, really short or really, you could have done something weird with it, wacky, but why did you choose this? And I think we all know why they chose this. And now they're going to be suffering the repercussions of choosing a playable character, not based on whether it's what their fans wanted to see, but because it's what they felt was going to be the most badass choice, which is a phrase that should always terrify you when somebody tells you that, yeah, we've chosen to design it this way to make it really kick ass and badass. It's like, okay, this is going to suck. So this, for any game, even if this was a beloved character that everybody knew and loved, which it's not because it's like a made up Mrs. Freeze variant of whatever. Even if this was an established character, this is also just a really boring design for a character. It just is. Like, it's just a generic sort of space looking suit with a condom over your head and then some pink glasses and then blue frosted tips. It's just uninteresting. Like it's just uninteresting. I'm not surprised the response has been bad. I said in my last video on Suicide Squad, I said, I've seen the leaked pictures of the next playable character and just wait. If you haven't seen them, just wait. The response is going to be real rough because this is what they're swinging with. Like this is supposed to win players back. And if the Joker couldn't do it, how the hell is she going to do it? Like how the hell is that going to work? Yeah. Like why not Nora, Mr. Freeze's wife? Like why this? Yeah. It's genuinely baffling. But this is what really ticks me off is it's like, you can't just, I know everybody's just gonna be like, well, yeah, that's Sweet Baby Ink for you. It's not just that though. They consulted. The devs though still had to accept the advice of the consultation. Like they still had to go along with it. In the same way, like if I hire a consultant to come in here and they tell me, Luke, you should only stream playing whatever, Doki Doki Literature Club. That's all you should ever play. And I do that, and all of a sudden the performance on everything tanks and nobody's watching and everybody hates it because it's just the same thing over and over and over again. And it's fine by itself initially, but it's just really bland. People would see that and disconnect. And I could blame the consultants for telling me to do that, but I still went along with it. I still accepted it and still said, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And so for like Rocksteady, it's not like you can't just put everything at the feet of SBI. Like that just doesn't follow. They still went along with it. They accepted their advice, you know? So it's just not that simple. You can't excuse it that way. Laser, thank you for the 20. Very generous. Thank you, my friend. I'm like way out of the loop with Suicide Squad, but I'm aware they have a low player count. Are the devs clinging to it and hope it succeeds or milking it? Because dying games and studios following that trend could be bad. No, apparently there was some reporting recently. I think it was Jason Schreier, but apparently they have pretty much entirely walked away from it. There is a skeleton crew of like, I don't think he gave exact numbers, but I imagine it's maybe like a dozen people still working on Suicide Squad, and everybody else has moved and is working on other stuff. Yeah, everybody else has moved on and they're working on like the director's cut of Hogwarts Legacy and other stuff. And yeah, I mean, their player counts are very low. And like this little bump, this was season 1. I think after the announcement of season 2, they got some people coming back in, right as they announced it, coming back in and kind of hanging out, but still they have 400 people globally. Granted, that's just Steam. It's not console, but still. What else are they bringing to it? They are bringing Frozen Hearts is the name of the episode. New playable character, Mrs. Freeze. Melee weapons, okay. Parasite, notorious melee weapon. Firefly, notorious weapon. Killer Frost, infamy set. But again, there's no limitation, so you can build a Mrs. Freeze that deals fire damage, which is dumb. A new battle pass. You can see some of the skins in here. I will say these skins look higher effort than what we've seen before. Everything else we've seen has been really lackluster, but you can even see a Mrs. Freeze skin here that makes her just look like Mr. Freeze. Like, it's really, really weird. Ever-changing Metropolis, so it's going to be winter themed now. Superman and Flash Brainiac fight. So there's that. There's just another couple of reskinned fights for, I think it's the same fight actually. It's a Superman and Flash Brainiac fight. So it's a combo, just reskins again. Trickster, Notorious Melee, Icicle, Notorious, Captain Cold Infamy set. And then they have episode 4 winter mid-season update, Brainiac, Green Lantern, and Superman fight. Again, just reskins doing the same thing. New incursion missions, and then new shop items as well, if you want to keep spending money. This is literally the only thing that looks like it should have been here from the start. Like this skin, a traditional Harley Quinn set. I think this is a skin from, is this the one from the DLC for Arkham City? Or is this just the Arkham Knight variant? But either way, like this is one that people are like, okay, well, why haven't we gotten these before? Why have we been getting like these really weird skins and stuff? Like, give me something unique, give me something cool. But the vibe with all of this is it's like an intentional attempt to look at what their fans want and not like subvert expectations, but to go the opposite route and do things that they will, like, you know, they will dislike, but to do it just cause to like lecture the audience or something. Like when we talk about expectations with games, players will always expect X. And if you deliver X plus 1, they are thrilled, right? Like it's like when I was playing, what's a good example? Well, I mean, the original launch of Elden Ring, I guess, is a good example. People are like, open world Dark Souls, I'm in. That sounds cool. And we played through the first half of the game and we're like, wow, there is so much. And then, you know, you first get up right next to the tree, you do the fight against, is it Godric? Whoever is up there by the tree. You do that fight and you're like, okay, this is going to be the end of the game. We're done now. And then it opens up like the second half of the game and you realize there's so much more. And so that was like X was what you expected and you loved it. Like that first half was 10 out of 10. And then they give you double that. And you're just like, how on earth is this game even real? It's the same thing with like God of War Ragnarok, where I felt like every time I was like, okay, that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. How are they going to top that? And then they top it again, you know, just over and over and over again. But then a game like this just feels like players already were pretty clear they didn't want a live service looter shooter. And the response was immediately clear. And again, you can't just blame this on Warner Brothers, because the reporting is pretty clear that this came from Rocksteady. The like Sefton Hill, Jamie Walker, those guys wanted to do this. They wanted to do it, and then it was caught in development hell for a while because they kept redoing stuff. They had all this like these perfectionist problems. Originally, like there were supposed to be vehicles for each character that got reworked into like the tank system that's still in the game now. I'm pretty sure there were loot boxes at one point, all sorts of stuff like that. And they just kept redoing stuff, canceling stuff, cutting stuff, redoing stuff, just waves and waves of it. Then the guys that were responsible for it, Jamie Hill and Sefton Walker, they left to make a new studio before this launched. Probably, in my opinion, because I think they saw the writing on the wall. So they abandoned their team and bailed on them so they wouldn't have to deal with any of the blowback, which is pretty slimy if you ask me. And they got out of town, leaving the team to try and explain this. And at every step of the way, when players expected X, they didn't deliver X, period. Not even, much less X plus one or really blowing people away. They just delivered like D. They delivered something totally different. Players like, hey, we want cool, like boss fights to engage with our friends, maybe dynamic ones, and a whole roster of other enemies that maybe are running rampant in Metropolis that we have to hunt down and can break out. My original thing, so you might see in my my like 3-hour Arkham series critique, I said at one point, there's potential for a Suicide Squad game that implements the Nemesis system. You could have a Nemesis system that comes in, you could have dynamic enemies that are becoming heroes themselves, that are generated like the orcs in Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. And I thought that could be really, really cool to give long-term potential and an end game that's never ending. It's just constantly generating new heroes for you to fight. And that could be super cool. But instead, what we got was one of the laziest attempts at a live service game ever, one of the worst post-launch supports for any game ever. And really, honestly, we'll have to wait for more reporting to come out, but I would frankly not be surprised to find out that this all, like, they knew that this was going to flop. Maybe at some point after the initial gameplay reveal, they realized this just isn't going to work. So then they just decided to delay it. They put 10 people on it and they've just done the best they can, but they're just aware there's no saving this. Like, it's just too far gone. Because I don't know how else you explain this. Like, some of these decisions, like Mrs. Frost, seem to be intentionally terrible. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's people out there that are creating like conspiracy theories that Rocksteady intentionally nuked this game's chances. Because like, if I was trying to make the worst possible choice for a new playable character, I would probably choose this. Like, this is on that level where I just don't know how anybody thought this was a good idea or signed off on it. All of that to say, I will try this when it launches on Thursday. We'll stream it and we'll see what it's like. I don't have my hopes up, but we'll give it a shot.